This is episode 449, and today we'll be talking about the latest Captain America movie, aka Captain America Brave New World. This is the fourth entry in the Captain America series, the 35th overall MCU film at that. I'm kind of stalling because just in case if this is one of those episodes that auto played or auto queued in your podcast feed, I want to let you know that from this point forward, there'll be nothing but spoilers in terms of the movie. So you haven't watched the movie. If you haven't watched the movie, or if you plan on watching it later this week and you don't want it spoiled, might I recommend saving this episode for later and maybe checking out last week's episode or the interview I did of Jeff Parker. There's plenty of episodes to play if you haven't watched Captain America Brave New World. Now, I did bring some friends along for this movie review because what type of show would the Short Box be without some co-hosts and friends? You heard them last week. My first co-host, you heard him last week with me and Ed talking about the latest comic book news and whether Marvel was using AI or, what the fall of Diamond meant for the overall comic book industry. Ladies and gents, I'm proud to welcome back once again Chris Hacker from the Oblivion Bar pod on this week's Short Box. What up, Chris? How you doing, buddy?
Yo, yo, yo. In case you missed last week, Marvel definitely used AI on those posters. Down with Diamond. They are terrible. And look out for those tariffs. Happy to be here to talk about Captain America Brave New World.
That was a great summation of last week's episode, Chris. Oh, Chris, you might as well go ahead and just be the unofficial. I feel like at this point, I have a whole separate roster of unofficial Short Box co-hosts, but you definitely lead the pack there, man. You've been coming. You know what? You got a place. You got a bed. Yeah, you got a chair. You got a bed in the house. All right. Anytime you come visit. All right. And rounding out this holy trinity of nerds, we can't talk about a movie that stars Harrison Ford without the biggest Harrison Ford fan you'll ever meet. She's been on the show quite a few times when I do these MCU movie reviews and things like that. You've definitely heard her voice before. She's a returning guest as well. But you haven't met her like this before, all right? You knew her as Blythe Milligan. But I'm proud to welcome the first appearance of my now wife, the big brain, Blythe Milligan.
Woo, yeah.
Hey, look at that smile. Just on cheek to cheek. She's so happy to be here. Life, what up?
Very tired.
And very tired.
Long travel week. Just pulling it together for you to go see a movie, and then I got roped into a podcast. So
Chris, it kind of did happen that way.
Who saw that coming?
Might I also add maybe just a very obvious life lesson, if I may share. Never go to a Brazilian steakhouse before a long 2-hour movie, because I guarantee you will be struggling no matter how tough you think you are by the 1 hour mark in. Me and Blythe went to a Brazilian steakhouse here in Jax, Tarragoucha for those for our Jax peeps. And it was our first time going to a Brazilian steakhouse. I don't know why I decided to do it before the movie, but it sounded like a good idea at the moment. The food was great, but I will say the itis started creeping in by the middle of the movie. And yes, we are rather a little tired today. But yeah, so as I've stated, spoiler warning for anyone tuning in. We are going to get into spoiler territory this episode. If you haven't watched it, come back to it. Me and Blythe literally just got out of the movie, maybe not even an hour ago, so it's pretty fresh on our minds. Chris, I believe that you went to go watch opening night Thursday, right?
Yeah, I saw it on Thursday preview night. It was the AMC fan event that they usually have on these Thursdays. Got a little keychain and a t-shirt, which was pretty cool.
Well, you actually got stuff this time?
Yeah, they handed me a t-shirt and a keychain. Oh, wow. I was like, wow, okay, cool. I see these movies every first Thursday that they come out, but
they're struggling now. They're like, yo, thank you for showing up.
That's not foreshadowing for my eventual thoughts on this movie. We'll get to it, but yeah, it was actually a pretty cool surprise, and I wish Marvel did that more often.
And with that being said, I want to jump right into the review. So like I said, me and Blythe fresh off the theater, fresh on our minds. Chris, you watched it a couple days ago. You've had a chance to literally talk about it, marinate on it. I want to go ahead and get our opening statements out the way. Overall, what's our temperature on the movie? How do we feel coming out of it? Blythe, I'm gonna go to you. How do you feel coming out of the theater just a couple of minutes ago? How has this movie sat with you so far?
I think it's just been kind of that was fine. Now on to the next. It's very I don't know how to describe sort of my state of sort of Marvel fandom. Like nothing leaves me sort of wanting more or wanting to dive into it. There are other shows, there are other things that I'm watching right now where the second it's over, I can't wait to go and see if there's a bunch of YouTube
Severance.
videos.
Sorry.
Exactly. I can't wait to go and see if there's a bunch of YouTube videos, Reddit threads, things like that. And I remember when when that I used to do that with a Marvel movie, and it just hasn't happened in a while. Did I think it was bad? No. I thought it was actually better than I thought it was going to be terrible with all the reshoots and all the sort of drama building around it, and just sort of, I think, the cloud that sort of lives over the MCU as of this moment. But I didn't have a bad time.
Yeah.
It was a fine time.
A fine time. What was better, the Brazilian steakhouse or the movie? She's like, no comment. No comment. Harrison Ford. That's their answer. Third
He
answer.
was very good.
All right, Chris, how would you describe your overall opinion on the movie now that a couple of days has passed and separated from it?
I don't want to come off hyperbolic. I don't often get like overly in my emotions about these things because I separate the comics and the movies. If I care about Silver Surfer in the comics, you got to make me care about Silver Surfer in the movies, and so on. So what I'm about to say, don't think that this is like everything is the best, everything is the worst over at the Oblivion Bar. I try to come at this with as much nuance and tact as possible, because these are pieces of work that many people worked on, and it's hard. Making art is hard. That being said, yuck.
Damn, Chris.
This movie is an atrocity. I hated this movie on a level that I have never disliked. There are only a couple superhero movies that I've disliked more than this movie, and I'm not even talking about Elektra. I'm not talking about like Fantastic Four from 2000 and whatever, the aughts. I'm talking like, this barely beat out Madam Web and Zack Snyder's Justice League for me. It is, in my opinion, that much of a mess in a lot of ways. Yeah.
I don't think I could audibly gasp loud enough at this, Chris. You tend to be very positive, and I've always given you credit for like always trying to find the good in a movie, whether it be good or bad. So this is rather surprising. And I guess, I mean, how could you not follow up and ask what exactly rubbed you the wrong way?
Well, I think the clear cuts of the reshoots is maybe the most glaring issue. I think from scene to scene, whether it's these incredibly green screen reshoots that you see with Giancarlo Esposito, or the submarines, see the ship fighting there at Tiamat Island about 3/4 of the way through the movie, where Sam and Joaquin look like cartoon characters. They look like PS3 level graphics.
Yeah, that was not that good.
I will, if I can give like one brief, CGI kudos. I mean, Harrison Ford's Hulk looks great, and I'm imagining that they've probably been working on that CGI and that scene since Harrison Ford agreed to be in the movie. So that looked all pretty good. But I think I don't want to, at any point, I do not want to compare anything to do with Chris Evans and his trilogy to this, because I'm so happy that Anthony Mackie is Captain America. He's earned it. The character earned it. He's earned it as like an actor. He is at this point a veteran in the universe.
Damn right.
But if I could just make a slight comparison, is that when this movie is so much trying to be like Winter Soldier. It's trying to sort of show you what Sam Wilson's Captain America has been up to since Steve passed him the shield, and since he accepted that role in previously Falcon and Winter Soldier, and now Captain America and Winter Soldier, right? So in that opening scene with Giancarlo Esposito and sort of him infiltrating the Serpent Society's base, the wild difference between Steve Rogers jumping out of a plane and just full on annihilating an entire crew of people on a ship, compared to Sam, who granted is but a man, right? He has only no serum for him. It all just looks a little half baked for me. And it just kind of very slowly from there never got better. Nothing about it ever got better for me. It's a thriller without any thrill. It's a superhero movie without any fun superheroing. And I hated it. So need I say more? I guess I could probably just be quiet for the rest of the review.
I'm like, Chris, go in the corner. Now, joke aside, I did not think about that. I didn't think about the comparison between the opening scene of Winter Soldier to Brave New World. And you're right, it'd be a hard press not to, call them like basically twins. Even up to instead of Chris Evans fighting Batroc, you've got Anthony Mackie fighting some equivalent of that guy,
Sidewinder.
Sidewinder. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
As Z-list villain as you can fucking get.
Let me quickly look up Marvel Wiki.
But I was going through the wiki and some other interviews and things like that, and I cannot tell you how many times they use the word thriller to blank insert subject to insert oh my god, what is the word I'm thinking? Subjective? I don't know. Blank thriller. How many times I read that in an interview, whether it be Kevin Feige describing the movie, Anthony Mackie describing the movie. So I actually wrote down a couple of the different thrillers they called it. This is a paranoid thriller, an action thriller, a political thriller, a grounded action thriller. So all of that already kind of translated to me like, okay, so we're doing Winter Soldier again, or at least the same vibe. And I don't know, Chris, I kind of agree with you is that it felt so similar to Winter Soldier that but at the same time, it was kind of a mess in the beginning that I kind of wish they would have just gave me a carbon copy of Winter Soldier with Anthony Mackie, because I feel he's good enough to carry the movie compared to what we got. But I'll get into that a little more. Chris, I want to go back to you really quick, since me and you are the two comic heads here. Did you like Red Hulk? Like, what do you recall in terms of like Red Hulk in the comics, or when Sam Wilson became Captain America in the comics? Were you reading Marvel at that time? Were you a fan of those stories?
I really only have one instance that I can think of where I've read the Red Hulk in comics, and it's Daniel Way and Steve Dillon's Thunderbolt series, where it's Red Hulk putting together a team of it's funny because it's Thunderbolt Ross putting together a team of the Thunderbolts. And they just fully went into it, because back in the 80s when the Thunderbolts was created, it wasn't created as like a pastiche of the Thunderbolt name. But they just did that in the 2000s with Daniel Way, and it's pretty fun. It's Red Hulk and Elektra, Punisher, Deadpool, Wolverine. Like it's all the anti-heroes that you like and know. And they all have like red and black variations to their suits. And, Red Hulk has that, he has the aviators on, he's got the black mustache. It's just Thaddeus with like in Red Hulk form. So it's all fun. It's all like very like over glorified, violent and espionage-esque, all those things. Sorry, what was your original question though? I went on with that and I totally spaced it.
No, well, I mean, you answered. I was asking, what was your familiarity with like the Red Hulk and Sam Wilson, Captain America in the comics? But I wanted to add to that when Red Hulk first premiered in the comics, I was working at the comic shop, the now defunct Universe of Superheroes, RIP. But that was a really, it was one of those silly things where I think a lot of us looked at it like, all right, Marvel's not even trying at this point. They're jumping the shark, which is a weird phrase to say in terms of a comic book company. But you know what I'm saying, for folks like us Wednesday Warriors, it did feel a little like, so they're changing the color of the Hulk, and and then there was that like that mystery to it, even though we all kind of figured it out rather early, but they kind of drawn that out. I do remember thinking, I have fond memories looking back. I think in the moment I was a little critical, it was a little silly, but it was kind of like, just like you said, it was just like a fun comic book series. It was like this Red Hulk character. You didn't know who he was, but you had a killer lineup of like Jeff Loeb and Ed McGuinness. Jeff Parker, who I had an interview a couple weeks ago, had some great things to say about that series. But overall, he was a fun character. So I was looking forward to their depiction of Red Hulk in the movie. And I felt like, I think you both have said it, but Harrison Ford was a great pick. And overall, he looked pretty good. CGI, I think sometimes a little distracting, and then damn sure made you work for that reveal. I think I clocked it at like an hour and a half perfectly is when we got the Red Hulk. And as cool as that scene was, I don't know if it was enough to save the rest of that movie, but I will give Harrison Ford and Red Hulk a lot of credit in terms of like kind of delivering on that. Blythe, I'm going to go to you since we just mentioned Harrison Ford. Your ears just perked up. You're all of a sudden awake. Thoughts on your man Harrison Ford's performance? Because you were a little hesitant. Actually, I think it's safe to say you're always hesitant when Harrison Ford is portraying anyone other than a good guy.
I was kind of rooting for him at times. I'm like, leave him alone.
He just wants to see his daughter.
He just wants to watch or walk along the cherry blossom trees. And I thought he needed a softer mattress when he was in jail. And just, I felt bad for him.
Now, mind you, I'm looking at him by the end of it, because I think you got to remember that he's, all the shit that Ross has done up to this point, right? Like all the manipulation.
He was a real son of a bitch.
Yeah, just being like the Avengers' biggest haters, right? Damn,
Yeah.
they're splitting the team apart,
Yeah.
and then you learn all this other, incriminating shit against him, right? Like he basically held, my God, what was it, a master? Oh,
The leader,
the leader. Thank you so much. I
Samuel
love that.
Stearns.
Samuel Stern. Thank you. He
Mhm.
damn near has a prisoner of war. Well, I guess it wasn't really war, but he had like a prisoner. All the extra manipulation. It's just there was no reason for me to root for him. But God damn it, Harrison Ford has some of the softest eyes when he's just sad. You're like, oh.
It's a manipulation tactic by the casting. Well, obviously, it makes sense to cast Harrison Ford in any role that he wants to do for as long as he wants to do them. But I think it's pretty apparent in the same way that like going forward when, and maybe this is a me thing, but like when you cast Chris Evans in a role, I'm gonna enjoy him in that role, whether it's good, bad, or otherwise, because I like him a lot as an actor. Miles Teller, good example of that as well. But Harrison Ford, and Blythe, I'm probably not as big a fan as you are, but I definitely have been a fan my entire life. I went through a very, very deep and strong 90s like dad rock Harrison Ford action phase here recently, where I was watching, Clear and Present Danger and Fugitive and Patriot Games and a lot of the other like Jack Ryan inspired Harrison Ford movies. So seeing Harrison Ford back in like a thriller setting was on the surface really appetizing, and I was excited for that. But Potter, to go on what you were saying there, to get Red Hulk at the very last bit of the movie, it just, at that point I was out. Like I usually don't go to the bathroom in these movies. I try to hold it as long as I can, even though I'm just downing vanilla Coke the entire movie. But it was right around the time where that ship battle at Tiamat had passed, and I saw Bucky on screen, and I go, I know what Bucky's going to do here. He's just basically going to say, Steve gave you the shield for a reason, and you should go do it. They'll do a quip, and then Sam will be inspired. Is that what happened? Is that what happened when I missed it?
He absolutely was inspired by that quip. But might I add, really quick, Anthony Mackie can deliver one hell of a speech. And I want to talk more about Anthony Mackie here in a sec. But Chris, please finish your thought.
Yeah, and it's just like at that time I ran to the bathroom, came back, and Harrison Ford, we all finally got to see what we wanted from him. When you have a character like Thaddeus Ross, again, who we've seen sporadically throughout the MCU, of course, previously played by William Hurt, who tragically passed away in 2022 with, I think it was prostate cancer. He passed away with.
He passed away in March 2022. The movie was announced later in July during San Diego Comic-Con, so he passed away right before the movie could even be announced, or even like our production started. I think them bringing Harrison Ford on was like one hell of a Hail Mary pass, but he did show interest. He was like trying to get into the MCU, and I think fortunately the opportunity opened up in his favor.
And when he's obviously in Black Widow, and I think even in that moment, and I mean this respectfully, he looks sick. And this is in 2020, so it would have been crazy to get him in this movie and all the things. But point being is that Harrison Ford stepped into this really well. It just felt kind of like a little bit of a tease to get him in this movie, and I don't know what he's about. Like, I know he's sad about he and Betty's relationship sort of falling out, but that's 100% his fault. And I don't know what his policies are as a president. Like, what's his tax reform policy?
Man,
what's
Chris
his
asking the real questions.
Like, I don't know anything about him outside of him wanting to all of a sudden bring folks together. Like his tagline is together.
He didn't have any policies. He won it by probability, which I thought was fucking wild. Yeah. That's what I'm saying, is that it just it did feel like such a weird jump, for him to all of a sudden be president and having all of this incriminating things in his past. No one wanted to do a thorough check. Well, I guess he pulls the string. I mean, he did work in that department.
Well, and also I think he's following the trend of all of us old white dudes eventually, where we're pieces of shit for 60 years. And then the last 10 years, right before we're about to die, we go, oh crap, maybe I should have some empathy really quick and hope people forgive me before I die. Like, that's what he did here.
I think they call that your president era. That's
yeah. Trump should learn a thing or two, not to get political, but he should take a pin out of that hat.
All right, on the topic of Anthony Mackie, I do want to talk. So we just talked about Harrison Ford. I want to get into some of the. I'm gonna name some of the actors and then get your thoughts and any relevant scenes or memorable things that you remember for them. Let's jump right into Anthony Mackie since we brought them up. Like any memorable scenes or moments from the movie that come to mind when you think Anthony Mackie playing Sam Wilson, Captain America. God damn it.
I mean, I thought he did a fine job. I don't, there was nothing really that stood out to me that like, oh, wow, I love that scene or anything like that. I think it just kind of boils down to this is just a very like, okay Marvel experience for me. And it kind of falls to the wayside as soon as you get out of the theater.
Which is almost a bigger bummer than it just being well. I think it's really bad. But Blythe, would you rather it be terrible and then that way you could have like interesting things to say about it, or would you rather it be like this where it's sort of just middling and you sort of see it and forget it thing?
Yeah, that's exactly it. It see it and forget it. I think for a while for movies, I just wanted a little bit of like escapism. And this definitely like gave me a little bit of escapism for a couple of hours. It was entertaining for a couple of hours to me. Well, I have to take that back. I did fall asleep for like 5 minutes.
Oh, you fell asleep?
Like 5 minutes. I didn't mean
The
to.
itis. I just got her.
It was the prime rib and the
Yes,
garlic steak. That got it.
It was really warm in the theater.
The reclining seats, they get you.
Yeah, they do. I gotta say the first. I'll say I thought the movie was a damn near. I won't say perfect, but it had my attention. It had me fully engrossed in it for maybe the first. I'd say first 30 minutes. I think from the opening shot of Sam Wilson, finding the animanium, us getting to see Carl Lumbly and Isaiah Bradley, them going to the White House. Danny Ramirez, I thought played fantastic off of Anthony Mackie and Carl Lumbly, them going to the White House. That whole scene of watching, Isaiah Bradley like lose it was epic, and Anthony Mackie talking him down. I'm trying to pinpoint where it jumped the shark for me or just kind of like made me feel like it was meandering. I'm not quite sure yet. But I thought in the first opening, like I said, 30 minutes, I was like, okay, I see what they were saying about this being a thriller, a political grounded thriller. You're not sure who to trust. I mean, the way the cameras, the cinematography was shot, very claustrophobic, tight shots. The music was on it. I'm just trying to figure out where it lost me. Chris, did you feel, were you already lost before that point, or can you pinpoint a specific moment where it was like,
Again, I don't mean to sound hyperbolic, but it was some opening scene. Like it was that scene with Giancarlo Esposito, Sidewinder, and all of that. I was immediately off board. And to go on what you were about to say a moment ago with Sam Wilson and Anthony Mackie, I said it earlier. I love him as this character. I want him to be Captain America. I think this movie would have really benefited from maybe like one other Avenger. Maybe that may have helped these things a little bit, because I think Sam always, at least in my experience, has always benefited from having at least one other person to bounce off of. And while I think Joaquin Torres is like a really fun character and he brings like a certain energy to this team, I just don't think he's there quite yet. I mean, I'm thinking again, a Winter Soldier, you had Black Widow, you had Chris Evans and Steve Rogers, you had Nick Fury, you had Winter Soldier eventually, like you had all these characters to sort of different perspectives throughout the film. In this film, all we really had was Harrison Ford's, President, Thaddeus Ross, Sam Wilson, and Joaquin. So, that again, it was the opening scene where I was kind of like, this doesn't look great. And the scenes you were talking about there, Botter, about the where they discuss adamantium for the first time with President Thunderbolt Ross, that looks great. And there are scenes in this movie where there are hard cuts where Julius Onan, who I think is the director of this, you could tell he's got a good eye behind the camera. But again, it's interspliced with these crazy green screen, blurred background. They did it 6 weeks ago, and they pushed a VFX artist to the brink of death to get it done before this movie came out. Like that all that was so obvious to me.
Let me ask this for the both of you. When you hear reshoots, have we been trained at this point to hear reshoots and automatically correlate that to, oh, this movie might be bad? Because my understanding is that reshoots in Hollywood, especially big budget movies, is a common thing. Is there a negative connotation when it comes to that word, when we apply it to MCU films, like is it always maybe an indicator of, maybe a subpar quality?
When
No,
Disney does it, yes, in my
oh,
opinion.
yeah.
Yeah, if
Hmm.
Disney does it, yes, because I think that they are just so dysfunctional as a company right now that any time they put their budget behind something, it ends up looking the same. Star Wars has this very same problem too, where a lot, except for Andor, a lot of their shows all look the same. They all feel written by the same people, and it just feels like the suits have gotten involved from the jump, and there's so much infighting that happens that I think that it's very difficult for a creative team to really flourish unless they can fly under the radar, like Mandalorian did the first season, like Andor did the first season. God help us what they've gotten involved with on the second season of Andor. We'll wait to find out about that. But everything that the suits have gotten involved with, in my opinion, with Disney has tainted it to the point where there's so much creative just stifling that's going on by budgets, by budget cuts, by ideas. Is probably ideas more than anything. And then the ideas just sort of infiltrate later on and to the point where they're forced to continuously do these reshoots. And then they have a budget of a movie for $500 million. And then if they don't make that at the box office, then it's automatically considered a failure.
Hmm.
And so I just think from the business line, from the top line down, Disney is just, they're a company that has kind of lost their way, and it's going to take a lot to right the ship.
That's well said. I don't know if I can follow up on that one. I do understand. I do want to admit, I know that we're steering away from talking about Anthony Mackie, and I want to make sure he gets his props. But since we are on the topic of reshoots, I do want to, because I started thinking about my relationship with that word. I don't think I automatically apply a negative connotation, but it does make me want to seek out what exactly, and if there's any specifics here. And for this movie in particular, I kind of put together a very rough timeline or some bullet points about some of the key reshoots and some of the rescheduling and kind of shuffling they had to do. And Chris, if I miss anything, I assume, if I know you've also dived into this topic as well. So maybe and maybe this is helpful for anyone that is also wondering, like, what did they reshoot? Why did this movie take so long? So very quick digest. This movie was originally announced at San Diego Comic-Con in 2022 with the title being Captain America New World Order. That was obviously changed due to some of the negative connotations around that word, with the conspiracy theory ties, and then also anti-Semitism connotations as well. So that original title was scrapped for Brave New World, which I do agree. I think the director or someone on the team said, this new title is a little more optimistic, what we want to go ahead and bring into the MCU, which is all great. Moving on. So announced in 2022, originally set for release in May 2024. That was then pushed back to July 2024, so about 2 months, due to said reshoots, some story changes, and those, they drilled down a little further. Those included, for starters, I think Chris brought that up, but William Hurt, who originally portrayed the original Thunderbolt Ross, had died a couple months before the San Diego Comic-Con announcement. I don't think that had anything to do with the reshoots, but who's to say that maybe they didn't plan for him originally? But I respectfully, I think they came up with having Harrison Ford attached to it. You also had the writer's strike in May 2023. So that was smack dab in the middle of production. I think they started production around September. So smack dab in the middle. Wait, was it smack dab? No, I'm sorry. They started production in November. So pretty much smack dab in the middle of production, we had the writer's strike. And then they also had to deal with, I think, some complications and criticism when they announced that Sabra, that character, was going to be in the movie, who was played by Shira Haas. She was Ruth Bat Seraph in this movie. I think there was a lot of, criticism about boycotting that idea, also with the Hamas and Israel war going on at the same time, just the movie came under fire for that. And then I think the catalyst for said reshoots, and I know I'm kind of out of order, I apologize. The film didn't test well in early screenings, I guess, right before it was supposed to be stick to that July 2024 release. I guess in the early screenings, it just didn't test well. And they decided, from what I read on the wiki, that they cut out and reshot 3 major sequences. They don't really go into detail, but that included adding Giancarlo's character after the fact. So he wasn't even supposed to be in said movie, they, I guess, decided to bring him in to ground the movie a little more
I'm
to
shocked.
make it.
This is my shocked face.
So, oh, a fun fact, real quick, and this is, I mean, that the film's wiki, if you just go to the production section, is huge. But a little fun fact, if you want to save yourself some time, Giancarlo replaces Seth Rollins, the famous wrestler, was supposed to be in this movie, and I guess he was supposed to play Giancarlo's kind of assassin character.
Well, actually, he was supposed to play Copperhead, which is another character in the
Serpent
Serpent
Society.
Society. Yeah, there was supposed to be him, and then there was also going to be a female, another Serpent Society member who I can't think off the top of my head who it was. But to build off what you're saying there, Botter, too, it's interesting. I don't know if you guys caught this at the end of the film, or yeah, it was at the end of the film during the credits. They list 5 screenplay writers for this movie.
Oh, wow.
5, okay?
That's right.
2 sometimes gives you a side eye. You're like, oh, this movie might be bad. 2. There are 5, okay, and I'm gonna name them here. You've got Rob Edwards, Malcolm Spellman, Delon Masson, director Julius Onan, and Peter Glanz. But there's also a Matthew Orton, who is credited as a writer for additional reshoots. So technically, there's 6 writers for this film.
I kind of hearing back what I just read, it feels like this movie is a very reactionary movie. Like the decisions to do some of these reshoots and some of these changes, go from something as small as like the title to something as major as like these 3 action sequences, adding an extra villain. And it doesn't feel like this movie had a very maybe clear goal from the get-go, or if they did, they damn sure didn't stick by it, because I'm so curious what the original movie was pre-shoots. And I mean, obviously I don't think we'll ever see that unless they maybe release a director's cut or something like that. But I guess when you hear about the roller coaster ride that was this movie, that was the pre and post production, does anything stand out to you that maybe you noticed in the final product we saw? Did it feel like, I guess, Chris, you kind of answered it, but if you want to go a little more, did it feel like a movie that was extensively reshot? Did anything not make sense or cohesive to you?
100%. It's night and day between shots. And I want to build off what Blythe was saying earlier. I agree with you to a certain extent about like how Marvel is sipping its own Kool-Aid. It's a snake eating its own tail to a certain extent, with the just cavalier of folks that know dick about comics just continuing to get involved, put their hands in the stuff that they don't need to be involved with. And it's clear as day. It's really annoying. And I think where it like really got me, where I sort of just completely turned myself off to this movie, was, I want to say it was right after I think it's Carl Lumbly's Isaiah Bradley gets caught in the movie, and we get introduced to, and you sort of spoke on her a little bit in the movie earlier when we were talking about some of the conflict happening, overseas. You have Shira Haas's character in this, who was supposed to be Sabra initially, an Israeli mutant character. I think she's a mutant. I'm pretty sure. Wall to wall didn't work for me from top to bottom, right? Like, first of all, the optics of it all, she's about 4'11", first of all.
What I tell you?
She cannot act her way through a paper bag. And that, again, has nothing to do with like her Israeliness, her femaleness, none of that. It's just that her part in this movie, again, from her participation with the Israeli army to the fact that she's not a great actor, all of that should have been, if Marvel and Disney are going to get their hands all up in this movie, cutting her out of this movie should have been probably priority number 1. That would have just made things just way better. And I think also there's a scene, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this, where Harrison Ford's Thunderbolt Ross is talking to his daughter, who have not been on screen together yet in this universe, Liv Tyler's Betty Ross. And in that scene, did you guys notice that like that mirrored no actual phone conversation in reality? It was like Harrison Ford bleeding his heart out to his daughter, and Betty Ross is going like, okay, all right, I gotta go. Maybe we'll get together. Like, she said no more than like 6 words to him in that conversation.
She was just there for the paycheck, Chris.
Yeah, and like, how much do you think she got paid?
Yeah, I mean, no. I feel like Harrison at least brought a little bit of it, right? I mean, at this point, Harrison could just, fucking, like,
for a dump truck of cash.
Yeah. He did say during the press, someone asked him like, they're like, what is it like to like recreate the Hulk's movements and picture yourself as this big red Hulk guy? And Harrison Ford does his like grumpy old manness. He leans in without saying a word for like 10 seconds and goes, "It's for the money." He literally said that on the press junket. Which, yeah, we get it. We like planes are expensive, Harrison. We all know that you're a big pilot and you have about 15 years of the current
Oh
mine
my.
you're living in.
Well,
But
I
like,
think him and Samuel L. Jackson, I believe, have a little bit of a rivalry on like who is the highest paid actor of all time. And so I think Harrison has openly talked, and Samuel L. Jackson have openly talked about taking roles just so they can edge each other out in whatever cinematic universe that they're involved in. So they both did Star Wars, obviously, and both now MCU.
Can I say that on the topic of Liv Taylor, her part was so minuscule.
Tyler.
Liv Tyler, sorry.
mm-hmm.
Her part is so minuscule. I had to scroll to the bottom, the very bottom of the IMDb. The priest is named before Liv Tyler on the IMDb, which I want to say I felt like was a waste, man. Especially towards the end, that Sam is able to calm Ross down by giving him yet another speech, even though that first speech he tried to give him didn't work. So I found it a little interesting that the second time the shorter version worked. But it's like, why not have Betsy Ross like involved in helping him like, wouldn't that make the most sense for him to see his daughter, see him as this monster, and whether it be run away or just transform back? I thought that was such a wasted effort. And it goes, and I guess tying this back to Anthony Mackie, the more I think about it, I think I just like Anthony Mackie. I don't know if, and I mean, granted, his Sam Wilson is superb. Can't tell you any key moment from this with him in his Captain America uniform and playing Captain America, which I guess you could debate. He is Captain. I mean, he is Captain America, so he's always playing Captain America. But nothing really stands out with him as Captain America. But as Sam Wilson, I love any time that he is just connecting with someone else. Like when he's talking to Isaiah Bradley behind bars, or even like telling him like, dude, please, you gotta like, don't escalate this any further. But that scene where he's talking to him behind bars, behind, the glass, was really powerful. The way it was shot, the things he was saying, the promise he was making him, and then also seeing Sam Wilson's connection, right? Like how many times was he, he had a connect or a friend that he knew, oh man, I mean, in the opening scene, that one Navy SEAL, oh man, you remembered my whatever brother, he's in the Air Force. There's something so magnetic and charismatic about Anthony Mackie, and he plays Sam Wilson so well. I just don't know if this was the movie to like really put him on the map as Captain America. I'd say that Falcon and Winter Soldier did a better job at like elevating him and giving him that gravitas. I don't know if this was the movie that Sam Wilson Captain America deserved. I mean, there was some cool moments, but overall, I just don't know if this is like the one to like really put him on the map and like give him that I don't know, just that solidification.
Mm-hmm.
Am I crazy for thinking that?
I agree. You guys, again, I've been trashing this movie for the last 40 minutes, so I agree 100%.
and Anthony Mackie, can I say that I was trying to pay attention to like maybe the all right, how does this Captain America like move and fight different than like Chris Evans? Obviously, he's going to get a lot of comparisons to Chris Evans Captain America, and I will say that this Sam Wilson is not afraid to whoop your ass. All right, he will whoop your ass. He will use knives. He will use battery acid fumes against you. I do like that this one is willing to fight a little more dirty and rougher because he has to, and I gotta say, like the story plot of him always kind of question, it's something interesting to see a superhero question his abilities in a world of gods and superhumans, and he has the option right there to use the super soldier serum, but like he takes that pride in what he represents. And it was cool to have like Bucky remind him that. And you could say that they've already had the discussion and the same topic or internal dialogue in Falcon and Winter Soldier, but I like it that it's something that he's always got to remind himself of. Like, damn, I could make my life so much easier, but it would be taking the easy way out. So I will give props to Anthony Mackie for just being fucking fantastic.
I was going to say, when Anthony Mackie's character was talking to Red Hulk and the sun was going down below
beautiful.
them.
It was pretty beautiful.
Did you guys think that he was going to try the Scarlett Johansson line? I was waiting for it. I was waiting for it. I was like, oh my god, this scene was perfect.
Go ahead and add Blythe Milligan to that list of writers right there. That is a missed opportunity, especially because it would fall right in line with like Marvel's tendency to break any serious moment with like a funny quip or something like that. Yeah, and also the scenes between Harrison Ford and Anthony Mackie were also really good. The tension, the battle in ideology, kind of like the ego contest. I thought anytime Anthony Mackie was on scene with anyone, he just elevated the other person's performance. So I do got to give him credit as just taking the lead on this one for sure. All right, I want to go through some of these other characters very quickly. I'm just going to name the top 5 actors that they got listed on IMDb. So no bias here. This is what they got. We've already talked Anthony Mackie. We've already talked Harrison Ford as Ross and Red Hulk. Danny Ramirez as Walcon. Was it Walcon Torres? Joaquin, sorry. Danny Ramirez as Joaquin Torres, the new Falcon. What did you guys think? Because I got to say, I found him a little annoying at times. But, he's just like a young dude. That's what it is. It's like I'm looking at a younger version of myself. I'm like, oh, wow, that is pretty annoying to always have to say the last thing. But I thought Danny killed it at that last scene where he's in the hospital bed and having just that moment with Sam Wilson. Like, I want it to be you. I thought that was excellent. Any thoughts on Danny Ramirez and Falcon?
Yeah, I like Danny Ramirez as an actor. He was great in Top Gun Maverick. He's a diehard Miami Hurricanes fan, as am I. So we've got that connected. He shows up in the U uniform there and the gym. But him as Joaquin Torres, and again, I like him. Yeah, I liked him a lot in Falcon and Winter Soldier. I liked him in this. He is a bit annoying. I think what they tried to do was integrate a little bit of his personality from the comics. The only difference is that Danny Ramirez is 35 in this movie, 30, maybe 30-ish. In the comics, he's 17. So him being annoying in the comics makes a lot of sense. Him being a little energetic, way too energetic and a little too brass, I guess, is just a little on edge for me. I think hopefully he'll get used to it. I think that was kind of the charm of Anthony Mackie when he was Falcon, right? Because he just took the role and ran with it and was willing to do whatever Steve needed him to do. And I think when we see Joaquin Torres again, I think that's where we'll be at with Falcon.
Well said. On the topic of these guys right here, any thoughts on the suits between whether it be Falcon or Captain America? Because that was one thing they did update in this movie is the look of both Captain America's suit and I believe Falcon's as well. But I definitely know Anthony Mackie had some input about the updated suit. I think he said he didn't like the cowl that they used in the previous
hot.
film.
He couldn't turn his head. He had the Batman 89 problem where he had to turn his whole body to look. But yeah, I mean, honestly, it all looks good. I like the short sleeves on Sam and his new Captain America suit. The wings are cool. I'm a little tired of the whole Wakanda-ness of everything. Like Bucky's got a Wakandan arm. Sam's got a Wakanda arm or Wakandan wings. Like Wakanda is just the new Tony Stark and just supplying everyone with crap. And I kind of, it's a little broad for me. I kind of wish that they would differentiate themselves in very specific ways. Like I would love it if maybe the military, like his partnership with the government, had him create some new wings, and that was sort of and maybe like Harrison Ford tries to take them away at some point, very similar to like what happened with Steve and his shield. Like I think there's some things that they could have maybe possibly Joaquin Torres's Falcon uniform, it looks fine. Yeah. Like it looks good. Yeah.
I guess I still can't get over how padded Captain America's suit kind of looks. I think sometimes the padding kind of pulls me out of it. I'm like, damn, you guys still can't figure out how to quite make a leaner looking suit. I'm not talking
wide, just a little wide, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And Anthony Mackie's in great shape, right?
Yeah, for sure. But I think I do like the color, the color design,
like a darker blue and gray. Yeah,
like the white piping and lining. I thought looked really good. I do want to. I got a note here. Fuck a ChatGPT. Give me a Red Wing. The amount that I will say, anytime that Captain America is using Red Wing in very interesting ways, whether it be to cut open a fence, relay the same surveillance video. Give me a Red Wing for sale, and I'll go out and buy it.
Here's the question though: would you rather both Joaquin and Sam have their comic book power, which for everyone knows, Sam has the power to speak to Red Wing. He has the power to talk to birds. Like that's his power in the comics. And then Joaquin Torres is like a bird person. Like the way he looks in the comics is like winged,
that is right,
with the talons. And it's because his blood, I think he was about to die, and his blood got spliced with Red Wings, actually, ironically enough, an actual Falcon in the comics. So would you rather that, or would you rather them continue to use this like AI robot Red Wing.
At this point, I'm Team Red Wing robot. What about you,
Uh-huh.
Blythe?
I am fascinated with drones right now, and so I'm learning all about their practicality and how they're being used in warfare to warehouses, and I think it's very practical and use. It's definitely coming down in the battlefield too.
But you know, Chris, I do think this movie could have used something. I mean, obviously there was a big red fucking Hulk. I mean, how much more comic book element do you need?
We can
And
disbelieve some things, right?
yeah. But I do feel like this movie could have used another thing to make it feel like it belonged in the MCU.
Well, what about the big green guy with the big head? Does
you mean
that not?
you mean the mushy broccoli guy?
Yeah.
Okay,
The growth on top of his head. You didn't.
yeah.
That wasn't real
Let's
enough
actually,
for you.
and actually, the more I think about it, I think I might have pinpointed where I was like, I don't know if I like this anymore. Which brings us, let's talk a little bit about Tim Blake Nelson playing Samuel Stearns, aka the leader, which I thought the leader would have made a really good, sorry, he would have made a good villain. All right, like in idea and concept, you know, this mastermind that's been abused by Ross that is coming back for revenge. I liked the idea. I didn't like the execution at all. I thought it was almost too distracting. Just how poor he looked, like just just the overall look. I mean, I get it that he's supposed to maybe obviously look horrendous and get elicit an emotion out of you, but I thought it could have looked better. It's like, why not lean in all the way into the comic book accuracy and give us like large fucking cranium or something? Like, you're already halfway there.
Like the acute head, like just
Yeah.
it's just like he looks like Megamind almost. But I agree with you. I think, and I mean this respectfully, like with a better director, with a better team, I think that they could have done something really interesting with the leader, because they're just showing him in broad daylight, and they're doing this. And you guys tell me if you captured this or not. They're doing this weird slow zoom on him every time he's on camera, and look how ugly. Like, it's like they couldn't give me one Dutch angle where he's like, I think they should have just kept him in the shadows, like very similar to how he was introduced in the film, like that, until maybe like the very end where you see him on the raft, and that's like the best look we get of him.
I almost thought that his inclusion was part of the reshoots. I almost believed more so that Giancarlo Esposito Sidewinder belonged the whole time, because he just kind of fit the overall movie. They were going for like grounded political thriller. I thought he fit a little better. Obviously, it's still a superhero movie. We want, a kind of a big bombastic villain as well. I just felt like he felt a little short. And Chris, you said something that I got noted here, but he was always in the daylight. And I just failed to believe that this guy was able to walk up to a Navy SEAL training facility, take out the head guy, and no one says anything about the hooded, mysterious, green, ugly guy walking on base.
We've all tried to get into a military base before. It is difficult.
It just felt too convenient that he had all the strings pulled and everything figured out, but he didn't come off like a threat to me. Right. And that's, I think, when I got lost, is that it just felt too convenient, and things were just going too smooth for him. And not only that, but part of his plan just wasn't, I don't know, like his motivation didn't quite like get me hooked. And obviously the look kind of pulled me away. Moving on though, I guess let's quickly talk about Giancarlo Esposito, who played Sidewinder. Any thoughts, any openings, any scenes that stick out to you?
I wish there were more of them, to be honest.
What a waste of Giancarlo Esposito.
Right, bummer, yes.
To have him and Harrison maybe like fighting, playing off of each other. I think that would have been, something really cool to see. Yeah. I mean, once you guys mentioned that he was part of like the reshoots, thinking back on all of his scenes, yeah, you could definitely tell that he just felt like an outlier.
Yeah, he was. I mean, it's Giancarlo Esposito. I would have bet you $100. I was like, oh, he's definitely coming back at the end. When things feel like it's going smooth, he's going to come back at the end, either shoot Ross or, shoot Captain America again, one or the other. And they kind of fell flat with him. I mean, I think the last thing he says to Sam is like, when I break out, you're a dead man, or something to that effect. And nothing from him. I did want more Giancarlo. Chris, thoughts?
Yeah, I'm just bummed that Hollywood keeps doing this to him. They use him as like a Band-Aid for movies that don't work, and he deserves better. He like nothing about this role as Sidewinder was his fault, I think. I would have loved. It's the biggest bummer of all this is that I think he would have made an incredible Professor X at some point down the road when we get an X-Men movie. But
Wow,
sorry, you're Sidewinder for 10 minutes in a bad movie, Carlo. Sorry about you. You know, so yeah, it's just a bummer.
This movie was chock full of people that just showed up for the check. They was like, "How much y'all paying?" Yeah, I got 10 minutes. I can do a
Yeah.
reshoot today.
Yeah.
All right. We kind of went through. I guess was there anyone else from the cast that you guys want to talk about or mention? I do feel like I want to mention that Carl Lumbly, who played Isaiah Bradley,
Yeah, he was very
will
good.
never not
Mhm.
pull on my heartstrings. I swear
He's
to God,
great.
when he
He's
was
great in
like,
this movie,
"I
yeah.
can't go back in there, Sam," I was like, "Don't let him go back, Sam."
Yeah, he's great. Let me ask you guys this. This will be the last thing I say
Oh,
about this. But
if I may interrupt.
yeah.
When he goes berserk in the White House, like I said, that scene, I was like, "Oh, we in it now." Like, why is he doing this? And to see like how he moved, I kind of want to see him in person because he's so fucking big and kind of like lumbers, and because he's older. But the scene where he fucking just runs off of the edge of the White House little balcony, crushes the structure, lands, and keeps it running. And Sam Wilson runs, and he's also like, I can't do that. And he's got to take the stairs. Like that. Those subtle cues, little moments like that, which were far and few between. Yeah, we're great in this movie. But back to you, Chris. What were you saying?
Yeah, well, just very quickly about Carl Lumbly and Isaiah Bradley. He is, he was the best part about Falcon and Winter Soldier, in my opinion, and he's the best part of this movie. And I think more of him would be cool down the road. I don't know if they're going to continue to use him because I think his role in this series thus far lends itself to what I think is going to be a storyline they're going to eventually surpass with Sam Wilson as Captain America, which is that the country, the role of Captain America, all of this has been built off the back of minorities in the shadows without anyone giving them any recognition and just using them willy-nilly. And I think this is excellently shown. If you don't like this for whatever reason, it's excellently shown in the miniseries, the comic book miniseries Truth, Red, White, and Black by Robert Morales and Kyle Baker. It's basically the backstory of Isaiah Bradley and what his character is based off of in the TV series, but also in this movie. But I want to ask you really quickly: am I off base? Because you guys didn't really comment on this. I'm just curious with Shira Haas and her involvement in this movie. Like, am I by myself here when I say that her inclusion was pretty bad and that I didn't enjoy any of it?
She's too little, I thought.
Well, I mean, to her credit, I believe that when she was younger, she had a sickness that stunted her growth. Still, was able to join the IDF, became an actress, so overcame adversity in her own
real
way.
life, she did that?
Yeah, all that.
I didn't know that.
A badass in real life. I think Marvel or the MCU, Disney. I think this script did her no justice. I think them kind of like, no pun intended, clipping her wings and not letting her become Shabra was who she was supposed to be, or Sabra. Sorry, Sabra. It's a shame because then she just became kind of like, your typical, I won't say clueless because she had a pretty good grasp of the situation, but for the most part, she just became like, nameless secret agent that,
she was a plot mover.
Yeah, a plot mover. Thank you so much. A plot device. So I don't think that the things I got to say about her character are due to her. I think she acted the best she could with the script she got, and I think with Marvel trying to placate, and obviously navigate the PR realm and with all the things going on, I think she just got shortchanged. She got the short end of the stick.
That's unfortunate. I wonder if she would have accepted that role if she would have known what was going to happen to her character.
I'm sure for her it was supposed to be a big deal to represent Sabra, her being Israeli herself, and then to have to, I mean, just to be like this typical random agent that had a pretty cool jacket in the middle of the movie. Yeah.
Had a crush on Bucky too.
Which, I mean, who wouldn't?
Yeah.
Who wouldn't?
We all do.
Come on.
We're all Sabra in that moment.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on. I want to go ahead and talk about our scores. For anyone that's into Rotten Tomato scores or is curious at the time of this recording, which is Sunday, 9:16 p.m. All right, a little past our bedtime at the moment. The Rotten Tomato score is for this movie, Captain America: Brave New World, is sitting at 51% on the tomato meter, 80% on the popcorn meter. You know how I feel about this. I don't ever take these too hard, but it is fun to look at them and, go from there.
The tomato meter means they hate it.
the tomato meter is the critic score.
Mm-hmm.
47 reviews from critics, and the popcorn meter is more so for like, your regular Joes that
Huh.
have an account on here and can
That'd be
write their
where
own
we
reviews.
would go if we put a review in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is another, which I've seen. I feel like this is a trend we see in a lot of superhero movies where, and sometimes it's even reversed too. I think the reverse is true here, where if the critics hate it, fans are a little more favorable, and I think the vice versa is true as well. But I want to hear your personal score on here. What would you score on from 1 to 100? And then where does this movie sit in terms of your favorite Captain America movies? I think we've stated this is the fourth entry in the Captain America saga. And does this movie crack your top 5 or top 10 MCU films? Chris, you want to take that first? That evil laugh should have been in the movie. That was more menacing.
What are we ranking this out of? What's the
1 to 100? Let's just use the tomato meter score. 1 to 100.
I'm gonna give it a 40. I'm gonna give it a 35% out of 100.
Okay.
It is a distant fourth of the Captain America movies. It probably goes Winter Soldier, Civil War, First Avenger, and then this. So, and then it is top 5. It's bottom 5. It's the worst. It's my least favorite MCU film ever. It officially surpassed or fell behind, I guess you should say, with the Incredible Hulk being third to last, Quantumania being second to last, and now this. So, not great, everybody. If you want to read a good Sam Wilson Captain America book, go read Nick Spencer's run. I heard the new Evan Narcissus, Greg Pak series is pretty good. And as I said earlier, if you want to read a good Thunderbolt Ross story, go read the Thunderbolts Daniel Way, Steve Dillon series.
You know what, Chris? This is a prime example of the book was better. I do think.
Yeah.
I mean, you just named 3 stories that you could go to for a better Captain America, Sam Wilson, Red Hulk story. I mean, I think I'll also add, that Captain America Truth if you want to, read more about Isaiah Bradley. I think the first series of Hulk that introduced the Red Hulk, Jeff Loeb and Ed McGuinness, is so much fun. I mean, it's bonkers. It's a little silly at times, but it's a lot of fun, and I think is definitely on par, if not better, than watching this movie. I will actually, Blythe, if you want to take it. What about you? What's your score? What's your ranking here?
Oh, gosh, if I was doing out of 10, which I guess, same thing out of 100, I was going to say like a 6.5 out of 10.
Okay.
But then if I'm doing out of 100, then that's like a failing grade. And I don't want to give it like a failing grade.
No, that's right. You should do that, actually.
Oh, wait. D's still get degrees. All right. That'd be like a D.
No, that's an F. 70 and above.
Was a D? I thought D was 60 to 70.
I think it depends on where you're at in the U.S.
Yeah,
because like depending on your grading scale,
we are from the same area of the U.S. 60, 69 is a D.
I thought that was F. I thought anything under 70 is F.
No, that's just I'm telling you. But anyways, you're giving it a 60, 65.
I don't want to usurp this conversation, but the fact that we have
because we are fighting right now, please.
The fact that we have to make that specification about whether it's an F or a D is the bigger problem here.
Yeah, that's
right.
Fair. You got this. Yeah, that's fair.
I would say if I were giving it a letter grade, C minus, D plus.
Okay.
I don't know that I would watch it again. It's one of those. So for a lot of Marvel movies, for me, I have them on. If they're on TNT or whatever, or playing over the weekend, I'll turn it on and I'll have it on in the background. I'll work on the computer during commercial breaks. It's fun, background noise. For a lot of, I would say probably the last 5 years of MCU movies, I don't know that any of them are background quality.
And Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is, I think, really the only candidate I can think of, really. Maybe Spider-Man No Way Home.
You would put that sad-ass movie, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, in the background nonchalant. Yeah.
Well, they have started playing the Black Widow movie, and I have watched that, and I'm like, okay, it wasn't as bad as I thought, and I'm okay.
It's fine.
Yeah. And I think that's what this movie. It's fine.
This movie, and I guess I'll jump here and give my score. This movie is as serviceable as it can possibly be done, which I think is a shame considering that it's been 7 months since the last MCU film, and this is the first. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's definitely not the first attempt to get back on the road. That is the main storyline. But for a movie that stars Anthony Mackie, Harrison Ford, Giancarlo Esposito, Tim Blake Nelson. Blythe is showing me a headline that reads, Captain America box office Brave New World opens to bullish 100 mil in US, 192 globally.
That's
Yeah, yeah.
fun.
We were talking about this a little bit before the recording botted that like it was only projected to get about 85 to 90 million on a good weekend. That would have made it a bigger box office opening weekend than Winter Soldier, and it hitting 100 million is a big deal.
Yeah, well, I guess I have stopped caring about that because I am not I did not invest in this movie, so the return on investment does not mean
Disney
shit to me.
cares. Disney
That
cares.
which is fair. Which I guess, you know, if we're talking about overall, this could impact other movies that are trying to. Anyways, but back to what I was saying. For a movie that's got Anthony Mackie, Harrison Ford, Giancarlo Esposito, Tim Blake Nelson, it deserved to be way better than what we got. And if I had to give it a score, I think I'd be right there with Life. It is it passes. You know, you're giving it's still walking up on graduation day to receive its degree, but the principal's looking at him like, you just barely got by, buddy. All right, you almost had to get a GED. And then as far as my Captain America rankings, Chris, I'm going to go ahead and break my own rule and say that my list goes Winter Soldier, Civil War. No. Civil War. I'm sorry, Winter Soldier, Civil War. I'm going to go ahead and cheat and say Falcon and Winter Soldier is my number 3. All right, if I'm throwing in the TV show, and then I'll say First Avenger, and this comes in on the 5th spot. Because that's what I'm saying is that I just felt like we had such a better characterization, and I think that Sam really got his shine in that series, and I was really hoping to see his first big cinematic movie that would have been something better. And I'm so curious now what the original movie was, and if we can really blame it on the totality of these reshoots and it just kind of going off track. A part of me says yes, because that's a lot of my issues with it, is that it just seems to just go off track. Nothing really had weight to it, and they were just doing paint by the numbers at a certain point.
I think before we close out, that's ultimately my biggest problem with this movie, among the many things I've already talked about throughout this last hour, is that it doesn't have anything interesting to say about Captain America, which I think of all the characters, that should be the one that you should have a solid pillar of an idea to talk about. And Aaron and I had this big debate about it during our review of it, where Aaron had these multiple different sprouts of ideas about like trying to turn over a new leaf with President Ford, and you've President Harrison Ford from Air Force One.
That's my president,
Get
right
off
there.
my plane. No, and then you got like Sam Wilson again having his imposter syndrome, all the things. But I'm like that's all been said before and better in Falcon and Winter Soldier and other MCU films. All that.
And I totally see Aaron's point, because I was thinking about some of these themes of like, self-doubt, overcoming your past and, turning a new leaf. But at least the turning the new leaf part, I just don't think President Ross or that character was the one to show that, considering just how much dirt was on his hands. I just don't know if there was any really getting that point across using him as that vehicle. But to your point, Anthony Mackie, I think, embodies the other aspects of the other themes of the movie really well. But I mean, it does at some point feel like, it's kind of regurgitating. And I wanted to add one more thing. Wow, I don't want to keep shitting on this movie, but Chris, you said something about the Incredible Hulk. I really like the Incredible Hulk movie. That is like one of my favorites. And it was interesting to see them reference that, which I feel like does get swept underneath the rug, right? Like, it's a movie that people kind of forget was technically the first MCU film. I mean, talk about a roller coaster of pre-production drama and all that. I mean, Edward Norton, and I mean, you could do your own research about that movie. But I did find it interesting that they were trying to call back to that movie, but at the same time, I am starting to feel kind of tired of the self-reference. It's almost getting to a point where they're painting themselves into a corner with the story, and it's also feeling like very self-cannibalization is going on, where it's like we can't just tell an original story without, very messy old references and Easter eggs. It's just the last statements I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
And with that,
well, I was going to say the end credit was probably.
Oh, the end credit is by far one of the worst end credits.
What end credit? Like we have a multiverse in X-Men. Okay, we've known that for 5 years now. Like,
yeah.
What are we doing here?
Yeah, that was possibly the worst end credit in all of the MCU.
Yeah, it was the worst in my opinion.
I honestly had I almost was going to tell you, let's just go home so I could set up the equipment early and we'll just watch it on a grainy YouTube video. But
but also no fanfare. That right there was the biggest
wow.
egregious. Like, where was the Marvel fanfare? I look forward to that every movie.
Yeah. That's a
Yeah.
good point. All right, let's end on a positive note. Let's look at the future. All right, will we get another Captain America movie with Mackie in the role? Who knows? But we can count on seeing Anthony Mackie reprise his role as Sam Wilson, Captain America, and donning the shield again in the next two Avenger films they got coming up: Avengers: Doomsday, which is slated for 2026, and Avengers: Secret Wars slated for 2027. I think they've started shooting for the Doomsday movie. I fully expect none of them coming out on these dates or years. I'm expecting to push them out as well, and probably also do a lot of reshoots because that seems to be the course. But we don't have to wait nearly as long for another MCU film. Like I said in the beginning, this was a 7-year gap between the last MCU film we got, which was Deadpool and Wolverine. Between this one, we've only got to wait until May for the next MCU film, which is Thunderbolts. And I was curious to hear from both of you. Are you guys excited about Thunderbolts? Are you looking forward to it based on the trailers we got, which was one of our trailers we got in the theaters? Blythe, any thoughts on Thunderbolts?
I thought it looked cute. I really like Florence Pugh, and I really like her sort of portrayal as, sort of like a, female spy. And she's one of I think the few like women in the MCU that I feel like is strong, is funny, is personable. And I enjoy her character a lot. So I'm looking forward to her. And then that crazy like Russian guy.
Red Guardian.
Yeah,
Red Guardian.
he's insane, and I love anytime he's on. I feel like he steals a scene every time he's on camera. Yeah, I think it looks cool.
I am so excited for Suicide Squad or Diet Suicide Squad. That's what the trailer feels like to me, and I don't know. I've always had an issue with Marvel kind of like giving us throwaway characters and not really doing much or going all the way through with some interesting characters or plot lines. And this movie kind of feels like that answer to it, with the inclusion of Ghost, Red Guardian, getting to see Bucky and Florence Pugh leading a movie has definitely got my interest. I think the trailer is shot awesome. And the inclusion of Sentry also piques my interest a lot too. Chris, what about you?
Yeah, it's exciting, but also I don't trust Marvel anymore. So we'll see. I mean, it's like going back to that old partner that has burned you one too many times. You're like, yeah, I mean, I remember the good times, but you got to prove me wrong before I can trust you again. And Deadpool and Wolverine at this point feels like an anomaly. It seems like Marvel has been on a total ebb and flow, peak and valley movement right now, where Agatha's good and Deadpool's good, but then you got Secret Invasion and Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness kind of mixed in there as well. So in my opinion, I'm very, very excited for Fantastic Four. There's nothing that's going to sort of mess with my excitement there. But in terms of Thunderbolts, we'll see.
Yeah,
it looks fun, but we'll see.
I think I'm in the phase of, no pun intended, I'm in the phase of myself of wanting to see something just completely different. Mm-hmm. And Thunderbolts feels like that. Fantastic Four feels like something completely different. And I'll even, obviously not semi-related, but James Gunn's Superman feels like, just a big swing. Like I want to see superhero movies take bigger swings now at this point. So
July 2025 was created for Chris Hacker. We're getting a Superman movie made by James Gunn and a Fantastic Four movie. Yeah, don't talk to me the entire month. Look, I'm gonna be busy.
There you go. Chris is back to smiling. That's what I like to see. And I guess
wait. What about the ScarJo in Jurassic Park?
Oh, okay. Let's do one last little round right here.
Sorry, I didn't mean to bring it up, but we're talking about big franchises.
Okay, fair enough.
Stars.
And I should have asked this in the beginning, but what was the most exciting movie trailer that you saw during your viewing? I count. We got to see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Actually, let me just go ahead and name these. All right, Chris, tell me if your list was the same or any different. Here's the trailers that we got to see. First and foremost, I obviously was pissed off because I made a note here. Too many damn ads. Did we always get this many ads during the movie trailers? I got an M&M commercial, I got a Disney commercial, and then I got an Allstate commercial during the trailers. Like, what the fuck? Can I not escape fucking ads for one afternoon or evening? Anyways.
Depends on how much they're paying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
This episode is brought to you by
big shout out to our sponsors, Gotham City Limit, Collective Con, and Global Comics. All right. The trailers that me and Blythe watched during our viewing: Karate Kid Legends, Ballerina, the new John
You
Wick.
missed one. As
Twisted Metal, which also stars
Yes.
Anthony Mackie. Okay, Twisted Metal.
Which is a TV show.
Yes, I think that was like
Wow.
before the trailer started.
It's gonna be a movie.
Okay, Karate Kid Legends, Ballerina, Last Breath, aka this is what Shang-Chi has been up to in between movies. How to Train Your Dragon, the live action movie. Jurassic World Rebirth, aka Tomb Raider meets Skull Island.
Yeah.
Mission Impossible Final Reckoning. We got a trailer for that Novocaine movie, which was literally a 20-second trailer. That
Jack
ended
Quaid.
yeah.
Yeah.
We got the Allstate commercial in the middle of my trailers.
Was it the Fumblerooski Chiefs
Yes,
commercial?
it was.
Of course it was.
Okay,
Of course it
okay,
was.
all right.
Why
And
wouldn't
then
it be?
we got a trailer for The Amateur, aka iRobot: The Last Form.
That's with Rami Malek,
Mhm.
right? I thought that looked good.
It's
Yeah.
iRobot: The Last Form. Anyways, and then we got our trailer for Thunderbolts, and then we got a commercial for Diet Coke. God damn it!
No Superman?
No Superman. That would have been appropriate for this
Wow.
one, right?
I had Superman, and that's my answer. I had a Superman trailer, I had a Fantastic Four trailer, I had a Jurassic
Oh, you
Park
got all
trailer.
the good shit.
Yeah, and
Well,
it was an
went to
IMAX, which is
AMC.
incredible. Yeah. it
Did
went
you
to
get
AMC.
any commercials?
No commercials. No commercials.
Maybe that's it.
Well,
We went
he
to-
went to AMC.
We went to Cinemark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cinemark,
Superman
they let
trailer
me
looks
down.
incredible. You cannot mess with my excitement with Superman. Like, this is so my game right here.
Oh, and I bet you it looks so good on the big screen.
Yeah. And Fantastic
jealous.
Four was a very close second.
I'm fucking jealous. All right, I
Yep.
think my favorite trailer. What? Actually, let me think about it. Blythe, you take it. What was your favorite trailer?
Jurassic World. I love all of the. Not love is a strong word. I love the first one, and then of course, the other ones are, are descending quality. But this one actually looks pretty good. I like the fact that they got Scarlett Johansson. I feel like she would not sign on to a bullshit Jurassic Park movie.
Right. Yeah.
And so that gives me hope, that gives me faith. I'm always willing to go back to sort of, the land of the dinosaurs. And I have heard that there also another Jurassic movie in the works. It's more of like a horror.
Oh wow. Okay.
Same thing can be said about Mahershala Ali. Like he refuses to make the Blade movie because Marvel keeps handing him shitty scripts. So instead, he's making Jurassic Park movies, and more power to him.
Damn right.
Nice.
Make us proud. All right, I gotta say, I'm kind of stuck between two. I think that Last Breath movie looks very interesting, but it could also just be my Woody Allison. Woody Allison? Who the fuck is that? My Woody Allen bias.
Yeah. Yeah.
Speaking, I will watch anything with Woody Allen.
No, Woody Harrelson.
Woody Harrelson. What is wrong?
Wow.
All right, obviously
Not Woody Allen.
it is getting.
Yikes.
Yeah, that would be. Sorry. Let me say that again. I think the movie. I'm stuck between two movies. Last Breath with Woody Harrelson piques my interest because I will basically watch anything with Woody Harrelson. And I feel like they're probably going to do some interesting things with that being a diving movie. So I don't know. That one kind of piqued my interest. And I will say, as someone who's never watched How to Train Your Dragon, any of the animated movies, I am only curious about the live action because I think I will just probably watch the animated movie, knowing the track record that is it a Disney movie?
No,
I
it's
think
Universal.
Okay.
Well, yeah, it's DreamWorks. But here's the thing, everybody. Quick soapbox, and I'm done. Okay. I
hit it, Chris.
hate
rare
this
form
so much. Okay, I'm in my hate. I'm in a new era right now. I'm in my angry old man phase because those first three the trilogy of animated films are classics. They're masterpieces. All three of them are incredible, and we just got the third one 2 years ago. Like, can we give it a moment?
Oh,
Can
wow.
we give it 10 years? Is all I ask. Like, let's let Jay Baruchel at least get to 50 before we reboot this whole thing. And it doesn't look bad. That's the crazy part, is that this doesn't look
No,
bad.
not at all.
Toothless looks great, but it's just like and I just watched the first one a couple days ago on Netflix, and it's just great. Like, if I could just suggest to everyone listening and to both of you, if you haven't seen those original animated films, they are near perfect. They're really good.
Have you watched them?
No, I've never watched
Oh,
them.
Chris, I think
but
we're gonna
with
do
the
that this week.
with the new park opening, Epic Universe, they have an entire land that's dedicated to How to Train Your Dragon. And when I first heard of that, I thought, well, wow, that's really strange. But talking to other people, they love these movies, and enough that they had so much passion behind saying how much they loved it that it made me think, oh, I definitely want to watch it. And then seeing the live action one, I said, oh, what timing? Like, that's a great marketing ploy on How to Train Your Dragon with Epic Universe opening up in May, and then you have this movie coming out over the summer. So it's great marketing, but it definitely makes me want to watch all of them.
Yeah, And I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna go and say it. That Karate Kid Legends trailer kind of got me in my feels. I was like, damn,
Huh?
Rob Macchio's back. What the fuck? And Jackie Chan looking old as hell, but could still whoop your ass. I don't know. Something about that. All right. I think we got a full episode. So with that being said, let's turn the tables on the listeners. If you have an opinion, whether it be differing or the same, if you want to echo what we said or challenge what we said about the new Captain America Brave New World movie, I would love to hear from our listeners. I would love to hear from you. You could email us at theshortbikesjacks@gmail.com or even text us fan mail or your thoughts on this episode and what we had to discuss. There is a link in the show notes. You could literally text me directly your thoughts, and I'll read it in a future episode. But besides that, I want to go ahead and thank my co-host today, Chris Hacker over at the Oblivion Bar, for coming on. And I didn't have to provide any salt on these chips because my man brought all the salt today. I kid. I'll have links to Oblivion Bar as well as Chris and Aaron's review of the movie as well. I'm curious to see how our opinions here differ. And obviously, big shout outs to the wifey, Blythe Milligan, making her first appearance debut here on the Short Box.
Are you going to link to my logistics podcast?
And for those of you nerds out there who are into logistics,
You want
and
to learn about
trucks,
drones and logistics.
I will have links. I will have a link to Blythe's show, which, if we're being real, between a comic book podcast and a logistics podcast, one of them is out here making money and talking about a serious industry, while the other one is shitting on a Captain America movie. Never thought I'd see the day. Anyways, listeners, thanks so much for tuning in and hanging out. You guys are the best. My outro is queuing up and coming in. But as always, thank you for listening. Take care of yourselves. Go read a good comic. As like I was telling Chris, this is a case of the book was definitely better. And come back next week for a special episode. All right. We're hitting episode 450. If I don't name this one episode 449, it means I'm stalling because I got something big planned for episode 450. So please stay tuned and come back. But besides that, take care of yourselves. Peace.